you know, again, we're talking about equal pressure. You know, big guy versus a little guy, he pushes him a little, he falls down. I'm thinking he's getting back up, right? If he lines the kid up and he takes him out, that's a different thing. But again, you know, we're really looking at the equal pressure kind of stuff and trying to make sure, you know, that they're playing good defense. So again, and that's what we told our officials, right? Call the obvious stuff. Don't pretend you're baby Einstein. You've got a photographic memory and can, you know, find some nuance in the rule buried in there, and you want to show this coach how smart you are and make some ridiculous call. That's not what we're looking for, okay? This I don't think we should have too much trouble with in the youth game. You know, again, you know, teach your kids, you know, I have no problem with them having fun. You know, make sure that they're actually, you know, have done that before, you know, scored a goal and things like that. But if there's taunting and especially the T-bowing stuff, we don't need that. You know, that to me is the excess celebration out on the field. So tell your kids we're not doing the T-bowing thing after a goal and that kind of stuff. Again, pretend like you've done that before and you've been there. You know, we're going to try and put a little dignity and respect in there, and I don't think we should have any, you know, trouble here. I especially don't think we're going to have any trouble with this. This is really, you know, more when you get into, you know, high school and college. Again, this year when you teach the face-off, everything has to be outside that white line. The only thing that can be inside the white line is the ball now, right? So there's no gloves touching the line, no sticks into the neutral zone, everything to the left of the throat of the cross. So again, we're going to work with these kids, just, you know, try and teach it correctly in practice, make sure that that white line is clear. I don't expect we'll have any trouble with this at all. Slashing. You know, we've had a lot of trouble in the past with the slashing, and we're going to get into it with the age-specific rules about the one-handed checks. But, you know, again, what I'm trying to teach my officials are preventative officiating. And you should hear this a lot, where we're going to try and talk to the kids before they make that mistake, right? Let's get some stick. Nope, let's hold back. You don't want to do that. If we see the kid, you know, coming screaming down the field like this, we're going to try and tell them, you know, look, ease back, right? And hopefully they're not. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go down that road. Again, we're trying to do the preventative officiating. Again, we're all here to learn and grow and develop. A little bit differently than a high school game, right? This is a youth game, not a high school game. So we're trying to get these guys into a mentality that they're dealing with kids that are different psychologically, different physiologically, and, you know, teach the game that way and officiate the game that way. You know, we're not going to have guys just beat on the hand half to death. Again, especially at the younger grades, lift check and poke check, you know, are really the only things that you should be teaching. You know, the kayak stuff and the rusty gate stuff and all the rest of that stuff really has no business here. So, you know, again, that's going to be an emphasis on the slashing stuff. A swing and a miss is going to get called, right? So the old coming one-handed check and swing and a miss. Again, right. Again, to me, that would be controlled. If you're coming in here and trying to get in front of him and then you figure you're not going to get to him and you stop, okay, I don't think we're going to call something like that. You know, if you're going to come up there and you're going to try and come down like this and, you know, swing with reckless abandon and he gets by and you come down, it's likely to get called a slash at this level. Again, we're trying to make sure that these kids, you know, are getting, you know, taught correctly, and we're going to try and enforce the rules correctly. Again, help us, help you. If you're not working on it in practice, we're not going to be able to be the miracle workers, you know, when we show up on Saturday and be able to change all the bad habits. So again, what we're trying to do is give you some points of emphasis of what we're looking for, you know, so you can coach it and work on that in your practices. They don't have to make contact, swing and a miss, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to go through it. It's all in the rules, and that's what we've talked to them about. You know, there's no one-handed checks, you know, until you get into the upper grades. Even with the two-handed, the same thing. You know, if they're going to wind up in reckless abandon, we're going to call it. You know, we're going to call it this year. They have a clear understanding. You know, we made that perfectly clear today with them of what it is. You know, if somebody's going to target the head and the neck area, you know, and come down and slash, you know, that potentially too could be, you know, a non-releasable foul because they're really trying to, you know, work on this targeting the head and the neck. And we told them, look, you know, it's different than high school. Again, these kids' brains when they're young, they're a lot softer. They're not formed, and they could potentially get a concussion. So if somebody's going to come and just wind up and whack somebody in the head, you know, the call potentially could really be a non-releasable foul. We'll tell the table, you know, targeted the head and the neck area and came down. You know, we're trying to keep this thing safe. You know, again, work on the hands. If they're going to come up and just, you know, with reckless abandon, hit them in the head, that's not going to be good. You know, brushes, again, you know, there's a brush call. They've got helmets for a reason. You know, if they happen to come up and tap the thing, great. Not going to call that. It's something, you know, where they're coming in there, you know, targeting the head and the neck with a slash. That potentially could be a, you know, a non-releasable foul. So again, we've got to be very careful with this. Pace of play. This really is a, you know, a big one. We all know that this game is really supposed to be like a metronome, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the pace of the game. We've got 1.25 minutes per time slot for a game. You know, they're 4-minute or 4 quarters, 12-minute running time quarters, except when you get to U15, where it's basically sub-varsity 4 quarters of 10-minute start-stop on the whistle business. But what we're talking about here is the pace of play. If that ball's on the ground, we're going to get it up off of the ground and into a kid's stick, because the longer it's on the ground, the more trouble that's going to happen, especially at the youth game. And we're not out looking for trouble. You know, we'll call a push, something to get that ball picked up, put in a kid's stick, and we're going the other way. So again, we're going to make sure that the game's run on time and that the pace of the game flows like it should. Which gets us into really the timeouts. And let's really not, you know, abuse these. What we really have is you get timeouts and they're 1 minute. In high school, you get 2 minutes. In this game, in our league, by the house rules, you get 1 minute timeout. That's 2 per team per half, and there are 0 timeouts in overtime. What we're really trying to emphasize with our coaches and our officials is let's make sure that we get our timeouts taken in the right place. And that really is in your coach's area. And again, this is not for little Johnny to basically take all of his gear off, you know, get a snack, have a sandwich, maybe some graham crackers and some milk. You know, this is have your timeout over here in your coach's area where you belong, not out here. What we've asked our coaches or asked our officials is, you know, again, coaches, let's take your timeouts onto the sideline. We're going to give you a warning, right, with about 40 seconds. So you have 20 more seconds to make sure that we get, you know, our guys, you know, back out onto the field. What we don't want to see happen is where coaches start to abuse this, because, you know, the clock's going to start to run, you know, after that minute's over. So if you think that you call your timeout with like 3 minutes and then you're going to be slow getting out, we're going to turn the ball over, you know, the first time. Again, we expect you to have your timeout and get back onto the field so we can keep the pace of play going. You know, if it continues to happen, then potentially you could get, you know, an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. So again, please try and have your timeouts as close to the coach's area as possible and not out in the middle of the field. So again, any questions on that?
Does the clock stop on a timeout?
Clock stops on a timeout, and then it's going to restart in a minute, because again, what we have is a situation where we've got games that sit behind you, and if we get, you know, behind at 8 o'clock and now all of a sudden we're an hour behind, that's not good for the rest of it. So again, the clock's going to start. Help us help you. You know, make sure that you get back out onto the field as quickly as you can. Conduct fouls. This is probably the official's best tool in his toolkit, is the conduct foul. And, you know, I've been surprised at the other 2 clinics that we've done that folks really don't understand this. And I'm going to go over it a little bit. And what's important to remember is I'm trying to emphasize with our officials this year is this is progressive discipline. You know, if somebody's going to malign my mother, father, and all the rest of that kind of stuff, it potentially could go up a little bit higher. But what happens with this is known as the half bird. Conduct foul. Turn the ball over. It's very powerful, because possession is all about this game. So if something happens on the sidelines where one of the assistant coaches is, you know, talking, which you shouldn't, and we'll go over that in a little bit, you know, there's a conduct foul. You know, if some kid, you know, is out there and, you know, makes some boneheaded play or something like that, conduct foul, turn the ball over. The next one where you get is your unsportsmanlike, the full bird. So this conduct foul starts off with turn the ball over, then it's going to be a 30-second penalty. Then you get to the unsportsmanlike conduct, a full bird, where now you're into the minute time. Then when you see the hands go up like this, that's when non-releasable penalty time. And then the last thing is the ejection and go hit the shower. So again, what we're trying to teach our officials is preventative officiating. We're all on the same page. I hope we don't get here, but this tool is very powerful when you turn the ball over. So that's what we're trying to emphasize with our officials. Any questions on the progressive discipline? Yes?
Are they able to call them on parents?
They can call them on parents, you know, and then it's a bench penalty. And again, what we're trying to instruct our officials, and think about it, these are 15-year-old kids. What we're asking them to do is come talk with the head coaches, and the head coaches should deal with the fans. I don't want the officials engaged with, you know, your parents. Again, help us help you. Talk to them in your preseason meeting. Talk to them, you know, when they get before the game or whatever. They should be watching the game. I really don't want this to happen again. We'll get into it a little bit later in the slide package about, you know, the responsibilities of the head coach, but you're responsible for those fans. You know, I'm going to ask the officials to basically come to you guys and deal with them over there, because I certainly don't want a 15-year-old, you know, getting involved over there, and no good's going to come of it. So we're going to ask your help, you know, to make sure that we avoid that trouble. So yeah, but they can definitely hit a conduct foul on the fans. Any questions? Yes. Right, the same kind of a thing. And again, what we've talked about with the kids like at U8, you know, again, you know, they'll basically go sit their time out, right? And then they'll come back on in their rotation. You know, we just turn the ball over. They're obviously not going to sit. You're not going to play a man down. You know, but that kid, if he gets, you know, the unsportsmanlike foul, he obviously will have to sit for at least a minute before he can come back in, or the next shift or whatever it is at U8 and U9 when they do the line changes. Butt ends. This year, you've got to have a manufactured butt end. I mean, I saw a lot at the high school game that I did yesterday, so work with your kids. You know, they've got to have a butt end that's manufactured for a lacrosse stick. It's got to be rubber or plastic manufactured for a stick. I mean, what we're accustomed to seeing is these kids taping up their sticks, and, you know, the tape comes off, and it's a safety hazard. So, you know, this year they're making sure that you've got to have a butt end. Again, it's not a gotcha thing. I'm not out there looking for trouble. If I see it, I'm just going to ask the kid, hey, go, you know, can you take your stick off? So make sure you've got some butt ends in your bag, and, you know, watch for that, because this is in the rules this year. Again, it's not a gotcha deal, but I'm just giving you a fair warning. Make sure you've got some of these things in your bag, because I know there's tons of them. I saw probably half the kids out there in the high school game, you know, yesterday, and we talked with the coaches. Make sure that you get a butt end. If they want to tape it, you've got to be able to still see that there's you know, a rubber or a plastic end cap on there. You know, I'm sure that none of our kids would have the beer cap at the end of it, or coins, you know, that these guys have told me about. Just make sure they've got, you know, a regular butt end.